Reminder that our listeners can call in and ask questions to the candidates by calling KBBG at 235-1515. Our next question is, are you satisfied with the way union negotiations have been handled in the past? And if not, what would you do to improve that situation? Can we start with Mr. Morrissey?
Well, as far as this question, the city negotiates and has a duty to negotiate with their unionized employees. The state of Iowa has Chapter 20, the collective bargaining law, which is in effect, and city employees, a vast majority of them, I believe, are unionized, and they have a right to collective bargaining. I firmly believe in the right of collective bargaining and the right for workers to join together to try to improve and maintain not only their working conditions, but also their benefits, their remuneration for the services that they provide. I am not dissatisfied with union negotiations and how they've been handled. I believe that the city of Waterloo sits down and engages in a fair labor practice by negotiating with the employees over wages. There are certain things that they cannot negotiate, and those are ruled out in Chapter 20. One of the things I want to make sure of is that we, the city of Waterloo, goes into those negotiations wanting to negotiate a fair settlement. And I don't believe that anybody should take a position beforehand, whether it be the union or whether it be the city of Waterloo, that they are going to be taking either side to arbitration and making those statements beforehand. I believe that that's wrong. And sort of correlated to that as well is the issue of privatization. And we've seen what privatization has done on highways and even over in the custodial area with Blackhawk County Courthouse. It's been a miserable failure, and quite frankly, when you privatize, what ends up happening is you end up getting a workforce that is paid less, and they do end up doing less, and the turnover increases. That's about it.
Thank you, Mr. Morrissey. Mr. Hall, and I'll repeat the question for our audience. Are you satisfied with the way union negotiations have been handled in the past? And if not, what would you do to improve the situation?
You know, one of the most frustrating things I think for folks, and I know as a voter myself, is when elected officials or candidates get up and they claim that they have every answer to every problem and they know everything. We rely on unions to speak up for those folks who are in those shops. They are a key piece of the conversation, and unfortunately, we've had folks who, for one reason or another, believe that we should, forget about good faith going into arbitrations or going into negotiations with good faith and go strictly to arbitration. That elected officials know better of what's good and what's necessary for cops and firefighters, for city employees, than those folks charged with representing them. I believe that we've got to have not just good negotiations. We've got to have quality conversations with our unions to make sure that our city is providing the things that are necessary for our workers, and they are our workers, people who are responsible for taking, serving our streets with fire and police, and with serving our city. We've got to make sure that we have those conversations about what their needs are. And another point to this that has become particularly frustrating, we're talking about good jobs. When we talk about how we should be cutting and we should be, limiting the number of hires, further limiting the number of hires, potentially putting at least our standards at risk. Some folks say, well, other communities do just fine with a 6-minute response time from fire. So we could do with less firefighters with an extended time. I don't want to have that conversation. I don't think any elected official wants to have that conversation as to why it was so important that they fought and fought and fought to cut a quality job in our community, which resulted in an extra 2, 3, 4 minutes of a response time from a police officer or a firefighter. I believe that our unions do an excellent job of communicating the needs and concerns of their departments, of our departments, and they're advocates that we should be working with, not adversaries.
Yes, Mr. Morrissey.
Along with that, William, one of the things that both the private and the public sector recognize is that a good workforce, a satisfied workforce, provides a good product. Now, whether that be in services provided by the city public employees or whether that be by private sector. And what we've seen happening over the course of the last 20 to 30 years is a flattening out of wages for all employees. And primarily, though, that's been happening in the private sector, and at the same time, coincidental with that has been the diminution of the union jobs that are out there. As a matter of fact, union busting and basically taking and shipping jobs someplace other than being handled by the United States, and that includes the city of Waterloo. That's happened. Look at all the manufacturing that Waterloo has lost over time, and that's resulted in a lower tax base, lower ability to, I mean, we talk about jobs leaving Waterloo. Well, Waterloo's population went from something like 86,000 back in the 70s to around 68,000 right now. And that's directly correlated to the loss of manufacturing jobs in the area. And what we've got back here now are these low-wage, no-benefit jobs, which that needs to stop. And also, along with that, these jobs coming in, they're no job that allows for collective bargaining to take place. And collective bargaining is, people might refer to as a union, and people think of unions, they have these negative ideas about what a union is. But if you look at the definition of a union, it's people joining together with a common interest. And that's what's good about the city employees. I applaud them for their collective bargaining and their ability to sit down and talk, and I want to have those conversations. I want to have those conversations with people to bring good livable wage jobs into Waterloo and have those manufacturing jobs that can get attracted to Waterloo allow for people to collectively bargain.
Thank you, Mr. Morrissey. I'm going on to another question now, which may be a bit redundant, but considering Waterloo's tax revenue situation, what parts of the budget would you cut, and what programs or services are essential and should never be cut? And would you support higher taxes to maintain current levels of services expected by our residents? And we know that about 73% of our budget goes to the covering the public safety services. Mr. Hall?
Again, it's unfortunate that we don't have more candidates. Pat and I tend to agree on I would say everything, but I'm sure there's something that we disagree on. And Mr. Schmidt, certainly had pointed out that there was a $2 million effective increase just this last year, which is true. It came out to about $2 million. Now, when you do the math, that comes to about $2.50 per individual per month to ensure that we maintain adequate fire protection, adequate public safety, adequate city services. To maintain what we've currently got, it costs the average citizen of this city $2.50 per month. It's less than a Big Mac. I would ask, again, hopefully Councilman Schmidt is listening and he'll call back in, but I'd love to ask him how that's a bad bargain. we have a rather efficient city. There are things that we could potentially consolidate and share services on. But in terms of what we need to cut, I don't think that we can cut and move forward as a city on our current trajectory. We're making progress, and when we make those cuts, especially to public service and to the public safety, we're going to be in a world of hurt. I'd love to lose some weight. I'm not going to cut off my legs in order to accomplish that goal. If I did, I would not be able to move forward in the same capacity. That is what we're looking at when we talk about these sorts of cuts, these very dangerous cuts. We cannot undercut our potential for what equates to $2.50 per month per citizen. That is absolutely wrong-headed, but it is a fantastic talking point. And we've got to move beyond the talking points. We've got to move beyond the easy, and we've got to move into the nitty-gritty. The nitty-gritty is, if we want the services that I believe the citizens of Waterloo are demanding, they come at a small cost of $2.50 per month.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Going on to the next question. Mr. Morrissey, do you have a question?
Well, I have to answer that question, I think.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay.
You want me to go ahead and do
Yes,
that?
please go ahead.
Although we do agree, so maybe it'll be the same thing, I don't know.
Okay, well, as far as I'm concerned, the city of Waterloo and their budget situation, I would review that. And I would look to other people that are knowledgeable about those issues to get their opinion, and that includes the people of Ward 3. And as far as programs cut, or the essential services such as fire and public safety, police department, the sewer, water, streets, these are all things that are essential. And I'm not a person that believes in going out there and using these phrases to try to attract people to vote for me. I believe that when I go to the grocery store and I see increases in prices, or when I go to one of the stores to buy some clothes, I try to keep in mind that everything seems to be going up, and at the same time, wages are stagnant. Again, to me, that cuts to the issue of we need to take a look at our tax revenue base. It doesn't mean you raise taxes. It means you quit giving away good land when it should be sold at proper prices to help pay for some of the services that otherwise the taxpayers end up paying for because somebody's getting some candy given to them. Targeted candy, fine, but it needs to help restore and also build up areas of the town. In other words, what Tavis and I refer to as targeted development, and I think that will add to the tax base. And if you do that with strong enough leaders and strong enough people on the city council, you're going to have more of that revenue coming in to take care of any kind of budget problem that might arise after we scrutinize that budget very seriously.
And if I could just add one thing to that.
Mr. Hall.
Mr. Morrissey makes a very good point, and I forgot that I apologize for missing it. When we limit our use of TIFs and incentives, which further stretches the burden on current taxpayers, and we make those new structures, for instance, a hotel that was previously, the land value was at $6,000 of tax, we collected $6,000 in taxes on that property. We gave it an abatement on the improvements, which would come out to about $56,000 or $57,000 annually. That's a big deal. That just one property would impact the burden on the average citizen. And so especially for our seniors who have not seen the sort of, with the exception of last year, certainly haven't received a COLA, a cost of living adjustment. It's unfortunate they haven't. That's certainly a federal issue that needs to be addressed, but they have not, with the exception of last year. We owe it to our seniors to make sure that we keep taxes low, but we also owe it to our seniors that when they have a health condition, that they know that they can rely on Waterloo EMS to respond to their home in a responsible amount of time, as quick as possible. If they have a fire in their home, that services are responding as quick as possible. When they report crime in their neighborhoods, that services respond as quick as possible. Those are our duties as city servants, and I absolutely hope that not just Pat and I'm confident that we'll keep that in mind, but I hope that the entire city council and those other candidates who are running for various positions keep that at the forefront of their mind, that this is first and foremost about making this a safe city for our citizens.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. You're listening to KBBG 88.1 FM Waterloo. I'm William Kay, moderator for the KBBG Meet the Candidates Forum. We have with us today Tavis Hall, who is running for at-large, and Mr. Pat Morrissey, who is a candidate for Ward 3. Now I'll go on to the next question. Please explain your position on whether there is a need for additional sidewalks, and if so, who should pay for them? Mr. Morrissey.
Well, I'm sure that people in different areas of town feel that they might have a need for a sidewalk, but I'm sure that there's people who don't feel there's a need for a sidewalk in that part of town in front of their house, but yet are being told that they have to get a sidewalk. I would again have to review what the ordinances are and what the policies are referenced to that. I myself haven't had to have sidewalk several squares replaced a year ago. Wondered why it is that if it's a city sidewalk, city property, or the resident there has to pay for that, and I want to look at that and see what is required there. But definitely there are places in the city of Waterloo that don't have sidewalks. Having walked all 6 precincts and knocked on over 1,400 doors, I know that there are definite areas that there are no sidewalks that I sure wish there would have been a sidewalk. So that's my answer.
Thank you. Mr. Hall.
I think this is actually a part of our plan for growth. When we talk about attracting new families into our city, we're talking about a walkable city. We're talking about a city that you can get from point A to point B, not just by car, but by bike, walking, other modes of transportation. But we have in this state a fantastic trail system, but we should also have in our city, really a full integrated sidewalk system. We should have bicycle lanes. We should have those sorts of investments that demonstrate the progress of our city. While I understand that decades and decades ago it wasn't necessarily thought necessary to ensure a sidewalk to every street, I can tell you, when we saw this just recently, we finally saw a sidewalk going from Allen Hospital to Hy-Vee. Previously, we had people in wheelchairs and on crutches and with other impairments having to walk from a hospital on a highway, on Highway 63, to go grab groceries, to go get a meal at Hy-Vee. That should be unacceptable. We should be questioning our priorities, not just as a city, but as human beings. If we say we refuse to, we'd rather not have a sidewalk, and instead we want this person in a wheelchair to drive up Highway 63 in the snow To me, that's frankly immoral. We've got folks with disabilities and who need and utilize our sidewalks. And if they don't have access to every point in our city, then that really is a matter of equity and equality.
Thank you, Mr. Hall, and I also should comment too that I have seen children trying to get to school on the
Absolutely.
roads without sidewalks. So I
Absolutely.
think that's an important issue that should be considered by
And
the city
with,
council.
and with our weather, we get 4 or 5, feet sometimes on the edge of those roads from the plows. And we've got kids who, all you see is the little ball on the top of their hat, if that. And for, as we're talking about roundabouts, we're talking about all these other sorts of structures, this should be a very basic, function of infrastructure, because it does play it plays in every one of our lives, whether we think about it or not.
I know that Tavis and William, that for some people, the issue is the payment of that, and sometimes it gets, because people don't have the money to pay that up front, or after the fact, if they make some kind of arrangement with the contractor, it gets put on their tax bill. And I think that some kind of accommodation definitely needs to be made for those people who just, that's a hardship for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, I agree. Thank you. I'm going on to question 10, the second question 10, I guess this is. What role should the level of government associated with the office you seek have in retaining or attracting businesses to the area? Or what should the city do to help and encourage businesses to create and retain jobs?
We should absolutely, sorry, is it my question?
Yes, it is.
Okay. We should absolutely not get in the way of businesses coming to our city. We should ensure that inspections are user-friendly, while it's certainly important for structures to be sound and safe. It should not be an impediment to new structures being built. So, like I said, we should be encouraging and welcoming all of those new structures and all of those new jobs. However, when it comes to city incentives, as Patrick and I both agree, we should be limiting the city's investment in bringing those jobs to bringing livable wage jobs, which is beyond the $7.25 minimum wage. I believe minimum wage, or a livable wage right now is somewhere around $13 to $14 per hour. We should be requiring, if we're going to spend taxpayer dollars, we should be requiring that those businesses bring livable wage jobs to ensure that, that those folks, there's no point in us attracting jobs with taxpayer dollars if the workers of those jobs are simply going to have to continue to be on government assistance. We should be making smart investments in quality jobs. That should be our focus, certainly in terms of how we use tax dollars in order to spur interest in our city.
Well, from my perspective, the role that I would have as city council Ward 3 person is to attract and be one of the lead persons in attracting new business to Waterloo. And I want to attract those new business targeted specifically at areas of town that have not received that kind of attention in the last couple decades. That's something that I see my job as an elected person. That's what I should be doing. And that's not jobs that are low wage, no benefit jobs. Those should be jobs that hopefully could include some manufacturing, industry jobs, as well as other business, bigger business jobs, but also include small business. Small business is the lifeblood of this community, mom and pop businesses. And we need to incentivize those people that are creating those small businesses to grow those businesses within Ward 3 and within, not just downtown Waterloo, but in other parts of the city where people would like to be able just to go down and maybe buy a loaf of bread or whatever. But again, make those jobs, those businesses, ones that will say that they're gonna provide a good paying job. An example of something that I think is wrong as far as a business concern in Waterloo, and I have no idea why the city council has done nothing about this, are the payday lenders. These businesses, I mean, if you want to bring in a business and you want to have that business be responsible for the citizens of Waterloo, be responsible to the citizens of Waterloo, and also be an economic advantage to Waterloo, you don't want to go with a payday lender. Because the businesses, by the time that they're done with the people that they lure in to make use of their money services, their interest rates can be up to 400%. That's wrong, and talk about something that's immoral, that's immoral. In the old days, they called that usury, and I refer to it as legalized loan sharking. And we need to, the city council, 6 or 7 other municipalities in Iowa, Ames, Windsor Heights, West Des Moines, and I believe Iowa City are 4 of those that have restricted payday lenders, which results in the payday lenders being put in a contracted area and in areas where they're not around liquor stores or bars or schools, places that they would feed upon people that are down and out. Because people that get payday loans, they have to have a job, they have to have a steady income, and they also have to have a bank account. Okay, well, the people then that have to use or have gone to these places end up in a situation where they're finding themselves with a big bill that's coming due. So where do they go to? They go to the place that lures them by saying, don't worry about your credit, don't worry, blah, 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 that kind of stuff, to attract them in, and then they get sucked in, and they end up in this circular loan after loan after loan, where it gets up to that magic number of around 400% interest. The city council can do something about that, and I would try to ensure that that was done almost immediately once I get in office. It needs to be done. Other municipalities have done it, and we can send a message to the state legislature that you need to act on this to rein in these payday lenders. That money that Waterloo residents are providing to these payday lenders, I think there's only 4 of the 13. We had the 13th one go up here about a little over 3 months ago. That money leaves Waterloo, 9 out of those 13 places. It doesn't stay here. It's an economic disaster as far as I'm concerned, and I hope that we can get those reined in.
Thank you, Ms. Morrissey. Mr. Hall, do you have anything to say, again, on predatory lending?
I absolutely agree with Patrick. We, it absolutely takes advantage of folks. You borrow 500, you borrow 450, you gotta pay back 500, you got, folks just end up going for broke, just trying to pay back a loan. And we do have organizations, I know Meridian Credit Union has a system set up to help folks in need. I understand issues come up, your car breaks down, or you need to repair, you need this or that. I grew up that way. I absolutely understand what it means to live paycheck to paycheck, and sometimes barely even make it then. But we should not allow, or we should make it as restrictive as possible for those sorts of predatory companies and businesses to exist in this city. The last thing we need is 99 cents of every dollar leaving our community. We need folks who understand the importance of Waterloo, understand the value of Waterloo. If folks need a short-term loan, we have credible companies and credit unions and things of that sort. who are willing to step up to the plate, help people out, but those dollars won't make it the cycle of that becomes predatory lending.
Yeah, and William, I do want to add, thanks, Tavis, that reminded me that on one of my knocks, I had run into a young mom who almost got sucked into a predatory loan, but she said that thankfully she made use of the Viridian loan structure to help her out, which I believe that they have a situation where you can go get one of those loans, emergency loans, and it can charge, I think, only up to about 36% interest, and that was very encouraging to hear that somebody had found that and made use of that rather than going to a payday lender.
And they help, when folks are able to save, it is at a slightly higher interest rate, recognizing that those folks are in need of some assistance and some help and are down with luck. When folks are down on their luck, it should at least be, the city government does have a role in making sure someone doesn't step on your neck. And that is exactly what predatory lending does, and it is exactly the sort of protection that city government should be focused on providing.
Yes, I see you both agree on that, and that is, I think, a very important issue because it does victimize a lot of our citizens. We are in the middle of the KBBG Meet the Candidates Forum. We're talking to Mr. Tavis Hall, candidate for Council at Large, and Mr. Patrick Morrissey, who is a candidate in Ward 3. This is KBBG FM and in Waterloo, and we'll be back after this.
Hi, I'm Layla Ali. I might be undefeated in professional boxing, but there's one problem I can't fight on: childhood hunger. Over 17 million kids in America may not
We'll
know
go to
where
question
their
11.
next meal
If he's
is
not
coming
back, we can start.
That's 1 in 5 children. Yet billions of pounds of surplus food produced right here in America just get thrown out every
There's
year.
only 2 of you. It's
That's more than enough.
Well,
to feed
especially when
every
we're so,
last hungry
pretty
child.
closely
Yes.
aligned on a lot
That's
of
why the
issues.
Feeding America
Steve
nationwide
Miller
network
here
of
has
food
some.
banks
Yeah,
gathers surplus
absolutely.
food and gets it to hungry kids before it goes to waste. But they can't do it without your help.
I was
Join
surprised
me
that
in supporting Feeding America
there weren't
and
more
your local
candidates here.
food bank
So
by
you see
going to
the difference.
feedingamerica.org. Together we can knock out hunger. Together we're feeding America.
To help solve hunger in your community and to find your local food bank, visit feedingamerica.org, brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
And welcome back. I'm William Kay, moderator of this KBBG Meet the Candidates Forum. We'll be talking to Mr. Tavis Hall, candidate for Council at Large, and Mr. Pat Morrissey, a candidate for Ward 3. Listeners can still call in. If you have a question for the candidates, call KBBG at 235-1515. Our next question is, what plans might you put forth for making the Waterloo downtown more attractive? Specifically, how would you implement effective measures and programs to improve infrastructure? For example, accommodations to encourage small businesses, provide pedestrian transit-friendly design, and sufficient parking and the like. Mr. Hall.
I lived downtown for a few years, and I absolutely loved it. I lived, worked, and played right in my own neighborhood. It was fantastic. I believe that our downtown is constantly improving and has loads of opportunity. You know, we often see other cities maybe that are near us and in somewhat of competition. Referred to as having this excellent model of a downtown, and they do have very nice downtowns, but they're 3, 4, 5 blocks. We have 36 square blocks of a downtown, and almost every one of those blocks has something very unique about it. You can walk from Mulberry up to Sycamore Street on 4th Street, and find a Mexican restaurant, an Irish bar, or an Irish bar and restaurant, a German establishment, multiple African American centered establishments, the Screaming Eagle, sort of the American sort of cuisine, Jamaican coffee shops. We have a grocery store geared towards the Burmese. We have a Thai restaurant just around the corner. Our city is an incredibly diverse city, and it is our opportunity. In just in a couple of blocks, we demonstrate our diversity. And so I believe very much in our downtown and the ability to unite the east and west sides around one center district. I believe growth starts from the center. And so when it comes to what sorts of investments, particularly when it comes to infrastructure, the provide pedestrian and transit-friendly design is key to me. When you look at particularly Park Street, I believe is too wide. It's as wide as 218 when you look, just footage. That's unnecessary, and it really is unsafe. It becomes a highway, and people, I believe the speed limit is 30 miles an hour there. Not a whole lot of folks go 30 miles an hour in that stretch. I believe it could be taken down to 2, maybe three lanes, with that middle lane as a turning lane, and reutilizing the bridge in a creative way that ties in sort of what we're trying to do with our downtown, which is to tie both ends of our city together. And just a couple blocks down, our 5th and 6th Street are one-ways, which I think could be switched into 2 ways with bike lanes. And the importance of having a 2-way street there, you look at buildings like Marsh Place, that on the lower level is empty. It's very difficult for a business to maintain on a 1-way street. Folks think about it on the way into town when they drive past it, and then they forget about it because when they leave work and they've got time, it's nowhere to be seen, or vice versa. If they just haven't thought about it all day at work and they just drive straight past it on their way home. Businesses very rarely want to go to 2-way streets, and we've got quite a bit of retail on those stretches. And so I believe that our downtown has huge opportunities, but it does take someone who's willing to study the issues and have conversations with those citizens down there and citizens from across the community as to what it is that we want. Bike lanes, I believe, are a big piece of that, to tie in our trail system through our city. I think is an important piece as we play with the entire state of Iowa.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Hall. I'm going to repeat the question from Mr. Morrissey, or actually basically for our audience. So what plans might you put forth for making the Waterloo downtown more attractive? Specifically, how would you implement effective measures and programs to improve infrastructure? For example, accommodations to encourage small business, provide pedestrian and transit-friendly design, and sufficient parking and the like.
Well, I believe that Waterloo, the downtown area is a beautiful downtown area and getting more beautiful. It has improved, to me, drastically for the better over the course of the last couple decades, and I thank Mayor Buck Clark for continuing that and wanting to add to that. I also have to give out special thanks to JSA Development, Donna Nelson, and other people who have helped improve and reinvigorate downtown Waterloo. Both on the, people say east and west, I always refer to it as north and south sides of the river. And the part of the river that includes Jameson's and Screaming Eagle and other areas down there, that has seen remarkable development. And now we have the Sportsplex going up. We have the 5 Sullivan Brothers Veterans Museum associated with Grout. And one of the things that I want the people of Ward 3 to realize is that a lot of this development that is taking place is within Ward 3. Not that Ward 3 has not been slighted over time, and that we need help. We need help in Church Row for infill purposes. We need help in the Highway 63 corridor. We need help over towards the airport and that area in there. I'm not saying that that has not been overlooked and needs attention. But I believe that Waterloo needs to follow, being as that we've already, I believe the city council has said and resolved that complete streets is something that they want to go to. I think that we need to do that. We need to make downtown Waterloo a walkable, bikeable city, pulled together by the Cedar Valley Nature Trail, pulled together by the bike system, the recreational trail system that's been developed. I mean, our area has 127 miles of recreational paths that make us one of the leading areas in the Midwest. As a matter of fact, other areas want to emulate what Cedar Valley and Waterloo has done as far as those recreational trails. That not only gets into you know, making Waterloo more accessible to everybody, but it also makes us a healthier community. And I hope that our Ward 3 becomes the healthiest ward in the entire city of Waterloo. And I would challenge Mr. Tavis Hall to that as city council person at large, I would hope that you would ask all of the wards to get in on that. Maybe we could have a little kind of competition going on there.
Hey, I'll commit to a weight-off. We're gonna go percentage though, cause yeah.
Yes, and walking could be a big part of that, so we need to have a good
Absolutely.
walkable community.
Well, the other thing I want to add is that Main Street Waterloo has been instrumental in this, and
Yes,
I thank
absolutely.
Mr. Jeff Kurtz for his leadership in that area. But I want to be a cheerleader, not just for Ward 3, but for downtown Waterloo, because there are some great buildings on both the north side of the bridge and on the south side of the bridge, on the 5th Street. Also, Park Street, there are some beautiful buildings there. And I think that that attracting small businesses to go into those areas, we don't need any more downtown historical structures destroyed. We need to preserve our history. I applaud the Grout Museum for what they have done in their area, and I wish them the best in the future and support them wholeheartedly. The other thing that I've heard from several people in walking around was the bus transit system. People would like to see that get improved because there's too few trips and people are waiting too long, and I would look into and want to improve that services, those services, especially for some of the people with disabilities that rely on those services. I think I've taken enough time.
Yes, thank you. The bus system probably is something to be brought up because of the length of time it takes between the buses on each of the routes. And if you miss a bus, it's going to take you a long time before the next bus comes, and you're apt to miss your appointments.
And the times of service.
Yes.
We've got a lot of folks who work second shift jobs who utilize the bus service, and the bus line is done at 6:30, and that's something that absolutely does have to be addressed.
Yes. Let me ask what might be our last question, and that is, what has been Waterloo's biggest success in the last 4 years, and what is its largest failures? That was in your opinions. Mr. Morrissey, would you start?
Well, to me, the biggest success for Waterloo in the last 4 years goes back to the planning that has been done with the Sportsplex, the Riverloo Public Expo, the dam, the boat docks, the Riverloo Public Market going in there, the development by JSA and Donna Nelson and others associated with Main Street, with small businesses. And I've been in that Brown Derby place just recently, and what a magnificent structure that is. And if that's an example of what's going to happen in downtown Waterloo with local developers, that is nothing but a plus. So to me, the biggest successes have been the improvements to downtown Waterloo, the attractions, and how somebody like myself can go out and appeal and shout out to people that are going to hopefully be bringing good paying businesses to Waterloo that this is what you're coming into Waterloo for. I don't want to be talking about, hey, we got the highest crime rate in this state of Iowa. That's not where it should be at. It should be at touting our successes, touting our attractions. I believe that the crime rate in Waterloo has gone down significantly, and I think that it's going to continue to go down with proper vigilance by the community associations, the neighborhood associations, who know how to make use of our public safety people and our public services. As far as largest failure, I believe that it is the fact that people, the voters out there, the people from Ward 3, have still this feeling that they elect these people to office, but then they never see them again. They never have contact with them again unless it's to gripe about something. And then they may come out, they may not come out. So the disconnect of people from their local government, to me, is the biggest failure, and that has to change. I want to change that, and I want to do that by having these regular face-to-face meetings. I'm not talking about taking over the neighborhood association meetings. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about separate precinct meetings where I would be out there and I'd be meeting face-to-face with the people who elected me, or even those that didn't vote for me, so that I could hear from them what their concerns are and take that back to the city council to help me in making decisions for what's best for Ward 3, but also what's best for our entire city, our unified city of Waterloo.
Thank you, Mr. Morrissey. Mr. Hall, what has been Waterloo's biggest successes in the last 4 years, and what is its largest failures, in your opinion?
I think Mr. Morrissey was spot on. Our downtown has seen huge improvements, and I look forward to the same sort of attention that's been paid to our downtown being paid to other areas. And the reason that attention was paid to downtown was because it had fallen behind. We have neighborhoods and areas of our city that have fallen behind, and I look forward to serving with other members of council over the next 4 years, Councilman Hart, even Councilman Schmidt, serving on council to address those concerns in those areas. But our downtown has become a fantastic destination. We've got to do a better job, and it has been a failure, and it stems from what Mr. Morrissey said. We haven't engaged our citizens to the point that we need to. And in effect, we haven't become the advocates as citizens for our city that we need to. We've got to change our own perspective about our city. And I look forward to getting over to those precinct meetings with Mr. Morrissey. And hopefully, we'll do those across the city. Because it is important for citizens to feel as if they not only have a voice, but they have an advocate. That they've got someone there to speak for them in those council chambers. 3 minutes sometimes isn't quite enough. But here starting November 5th, hopefully Mr. Morrissey and I have 4 years to advocate for the concerns of so many of our citizens. And like I said, we look forward to helping maybe influence the flow of city council so that it is more geared towards the people who elect and that they are supposed to be serving.
Well, you both kind of concluded. I just have one thought that I'd like to ask you about, maybe kind of spur of the moment, is it's been known that Waterloo gets a bad rap from various organizations and communities around. Probably not at all accurate, but there's a myth that we have some problems here that, like, you shouldn't go downtown to Waterloo because it's dangerous, these sort of things. Do you have anything that you might suggest that would maybe counteract that?
Well, I'll tell you, and it's unfortunate that the mayor is out of town today, but the mayor really has done a fantastic job with the League of Cities, who they take that back to their own communities, and he's been the cheerleader that he's talked about. He's done a very good job, and it starts at the head, and hopefully, it goes throughout. So hopefully our council members will continue to have positive conversations, and our citizens as well. I believe actually that the grout plays a very key role in this, because I think that conversation starts at home. Too often we're rather critical of our own city, and I think that once I voted already, and I voted yes to fund the grout, and I hope that our listeners do as well. But we have an opportunity there with the grout to help remind people of the rich history that Waterloo has when it comes to civil rights, when it comes to workers' rights, when it comes to various factors of life here in Iowa. Waterloo has played a very important role, and I don't know that our citizens fully understand and fully grasp that. You know, my 8-year-old, my 3rd grader, came home the other day and was so excited that he was going to be on Museum Week down at the grout. Hopefully, with the passage of that levy, they'll be able to continue that not just in 3rd grade but 5th grade,